Hello, I am Dale. Hello. I know you have been used to my highly polished Hollywood-level productions, paid for with a grant from the Southern Poverty Law Center. But for some reason, their last check didn't clear. So today, I am going to be speaking extemporally, expectoraneously, untemporaneously?
Unequivocally.
Senpai, you aren't helping! Anyway, I'll be speaking off the cuff without the help of all the usual Hollywood magic. So for today, why don't you think of me as... Fly Fishin' Dale. Hello!
Alright, so, oh my gosh, my voice has changed too. Wow, that check from the SPLC was covering a hell of a lot. Alright, people, settle in. It's time to enjoy a simultaneous sip of Scott Adams' tears. I'm gonna get a little smooth here. Okay, now dig this. For those of you who have been following me, you know that I have been going at Scott Adams pretty hard over this thing he calls the Charlottesville hoax. He now calls it the Fine People hoax. But both of these terms refer to the way the media covered Donald Trump's disastrous press conference where he addressed the Charlottesville Unite the Right rally and the car attack that took place there that killed Heather Heyer and injured about 20 others. Scott Adams thinks that Donald Trump was treated unfairly by the media because of the way they interpreted his line that there were fine people on both sides of the situation, fine people amongst the protesters that came to Charlottesville for the Unite the Right rally, fine people protesting them, and he also said that there were bad people, bad actors in both of those groups as well. This was seen by most people as Donald Trump drawing a moral equivalency between the neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and alt-right fascists, and those who came to protest them, because there were violent scuffles that broke out between the groups. Both groups came equipped with shields and helmets, and there certainly were bad actors on both sides, but only one side was driving cars through crowds of people in crosswalks and killing them and crushing spines. That was the Nazi side. So because Scott Adams is Donald Trump's #1 defender, and since he knows that Donald Trump's response to Charlottesville will be Exhibit A for the case against him that the Democrats will be making when they run their candidate, Scott has been working overtime for about a month now, maybe longer, to rehabilitate Donald Trump's image in relation to his fine people quote. And what he has been trying to do is distort the sense of who Donald Trump was referring to when he spoke of fine people. Scott Adams tried to suggest that what Trump really meant was that there were fine people on both sides of the broader national debate over whether or not Confederate statues should be taken down, instead of what Donald Trump was actually saying was that there were fine people participating in the rally, both amongst the counter-protesters and the protesters, the people who came for the Unite the Right event. Now, Scott Adams was correct that at the same press conference, Donald Trump had condemned neo-Nazis and the KKK and white supremacists specifically, but that message was undercut by his fine people quote, and the fact that how can one reconcile there being fine people who are also rallying with proclaimed neo-Nazis and other fascists? So this was Scott's in. He figured if you can just illustrate the contradiction, then the fault must be on the side of the media and the way they're portraying what he said, rather than the fault being on the side of Donald Trump and his inability to be genuinely sympathetic and to steer clear of his own bullshit. And this is where I came in. I began covering what Scott was doing. I wrote an article about it on Medium. I pointed out that what Scott was undertaking was an incredibly bad taste, and eventually he backed off. He no longer refers to his scheme as the Charlottesville hoax. He's no longer trying to get press coverage for it under that name. He now refers to it as the Fine People hoax, which is obviously less sticky. So, win for me. But as I engaged with Scott Adams fans, I noticed that many of them still have a misformed idea about what the Charlottesville event even was, and why Donald Trump's response to it was so tone-deaf. So if you are a Scott Adams fan who has fallen for his Charlottesville hoax, here are some details you should know. Unite the Right was organized by Jason Kessler and Eli Mosley, who are both figures in the alt-right and white supremacist movements. A dry run for Unite the Right was held in Charlottesville in May of 2017, complete with a tiki torch rally spearheaded by Richard Spencer.
Hail Trump! Hail our people! Hail victory!
All the invited guests to the rally were known racists and anti-Semites. The event was not about the statue of Robert E. Lee. That was just symbolism. Here is one of the invited guests, Augustus Invictus, explaining the real purpose behind the Unite the Right rally. And just as a side note, have you ever noticed how many of these alt-right figures have names that sound like characters from a Harry Potter novel?
The title of the rally really was what the rally was about. It was about uniting all the various right-wing factions in this country so that we could form one mass movement to reclaim the country.
So, let's be clear. This was a fascist event, soup to nuts, and any genuine fine people were only there by accident. Now, this is the crux of how Trump bungled his messaging. 3 days after Charlottesville, he still had no idea what he was defending. He even let slip that he had watched the Tiki Torch March the night before the event and was completely undisturbed by it.
They were there to protest, excuse me, you take a look the night before, they were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. Infrastructure question, go ahead.
Now it's time to put to bed the idea that the fine people line from Trump's presser ever referred to some abstract conversation about monuments. So here's the relevant piece of video.
On both sides, sir. You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
So this is premium Trump. He's already peeling off his rubber skin and showing that he does not care about the facts. Obviously nothing that Heather Heyer was doing by simply crossing the street can be called blameworthy.
Kill the person. Heather Heyer definitely.
They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did.
So there's our money quote, and once again, it's blame everyone. The only problem is that, the organizers of the rally did put themselves down as neo-Nazis, or at least that was known to anyone who chose to attend on the right-wing side. So you see what I mean about him not knowing what he's talking about?
You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
Incidentally, the name they were going to change the park to was Emancipation Park. And something tells me that Trump actually knew that and that he caught himself before he exposed himself as being even more obnoxious than he was coming across.
Like nationalists?
Well, no, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down...
What's he doing with his hand there, by the way? Is he like trying to shoot a Hadouken?
Excuse me. Are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue.
Do you think Donald Trump knows anything else about Washington and Jefferson besides the fact that they are slave owners? Now think of it. At this moment, when he could be evoking these presidents to reinforce the notion of our better angels and the idea that all men are created equal, he instead evokes them to justify the murderous emotions of racist chuds. I mean, this is just fucking unreal.
So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly.
So there we have the cherry on top. Who's being treated unfairly? It's not the people who were ground up beneath the tires of James Alex Fields. No, the real victims were the people Donald Trump only imagined had been at the rally. The completely fictitious fine people. And that is the real Charlottesville hoax. The hoax that Scott Adams is still trying to perpetrate, which is that at that press conference, President Trump came across as anything but creepy, uninformed, hostile, and completely unempathic towards the victims of a terrorist attack inspired by the MAGA movement. Enough said. Time to go do some fly fishing. Fry fishing. I'm gonna get a fish fry.
What happened? Where'd I go? Why am I covered in pepperonis?
Real human being. And a real hero. Real human being. And a real hero.
Before I make a statement, I like to know the facts.